Good morning, year three. So today's lesson is going to be to recognize and represent tenths. Okay, so this is a new concept. So make sure that you're paying very close attention so that you can understand what tenths are. Now, I've laid out my learning, how I expect everyone to do so. So when you guys are handing in your learning, could you please make sure that you are writing the date. So this is for Wednesday, the 29th of April of 2020. And I underline my learning intention, and I also created a nice margin here with a red pencil as well. And I underline my date and my learning intention. So that's just a little bit a reminder of how we set up our learning. And today I am going to use a rectangle to represent my tenths. Again, I can use any shape, but this one in particular is going to be useful and is a lot easier for me to show you, to represent our tenths. So the first question that I want you to ask, and I want you to pause the video, is in how many equal parts have I split my whole? Now again, this whole thing, okay, this whole shape is my whole. So how many equal parts have I split my whole? You can press pause and you can just answer that right now. Brilliant. So you have probably got this question correct if you just counted the amount of equal parts that are in this whole. Now I'm just going to count it together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I am going to just, again, this is going to be my denominator, and my denominator is going to be of 10 because I've split my whole into 10 equal pieces. Again, if you don't know exactly how I got my denominator by what I just explained, please refer back to the previous learning in the last couple of videos that I've uploaded. Just a refresher as to how we got 10 as my denominator. Okay, so I split my whole into 10 equal parts, and I write that in my denominator. Now, my next question that I want you to pause the video and then answer is, what do we call each part of this whole? So what do we call each of these pieces, equal pieces, remember, out of these whole? So can you please just pause the video and just take a second to think of how do we call those, okay? All right, so every fraction that we write, they have a name. And in this particular one, because we have split the whole into 10 equal parts, we call each of these, so that, and that, and that, and that, and all of them together, okay? Each of those we call, and I'm going to write it here. We call these tenths. Okay, so each of these represent my tenths. Okay, so that would answer this question. What do we call each of these parts? We call them tenths, and as you can see, it sounds like 10. So that's because obviously we split them into 10 equal parts. Let's move on to the next question. Okay, so how many blank do I need to make a whole? Okay, so how many, and I blanked it because obviously I didn't want to give you the answer. So how many, and I'm going to fill the blank here. How many tenths do I need to make a whole? Okay, now remember that we get our numerator by shading in all these equal parts. So for example, let's just shade. Okay, so we have 1, so that would be 1/10, right? We know that each of those are tenths. Now if we shade another one, then we would have 2. I'm just going to write it here so that you can, so that would be 2/10, right? That would be 2/10. If I shade another one, okay, now I have 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to put a comma here. I have 3/10, right? And I just can keep on going. So you have 4 here. Obviously, my numerator is going to be 4, and my denominator is obviously 10 because I have 10 equal parts of my whole. And I can keep on going. Okay, I'm going to go to my next one, which is going to be 5. So I have 5/10. And I'm going to keep on going and shade in another one. I have 6/10. Okay. And I'm going to go on to the next one. I'm going to shade in another one. So I have, as you can predict, I have 7/10. Then I am going to shade in another one, and that would represent 8/10. If I shade in another one, I have shaded in 9/10. And if I shade my last tenth, I would have 10/10. Okay? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Okay? Because the next question says, how many tenths do I need to make a whole? A whole, all this shape represents a whole, or 1. So how many tenths do I need to make a whole? You can pause the video and you can answer that question just using the representations here to help you out. All right, so as you probably have answered, you will need 10 of these tenths to make a whole. Okay, now our last question is, when I am writing tenths, the blank is always 10. So what do you think I am going to have to write in this blank? Is it my numerator, which is this part of the fraction, or is it my denominator, which is this part of the fraction? Now, what have you noticed that is always 10? You can pause the video one more time and just answer the question. When I am writing tenths, the blank, numerator or denominator, is always 10. Brilliant. So, as you probably have answered, you notice that the same denominator, okay, is seen every single time I write those fractions that represent tenths. So when I'm writing the tenths, the denominator is always 10. As you can see, this is my denominator, and that represents 2/10, and all the way to my last fraction that I've written here, which is represented here, I have 10/10. So by knowing how tenths look like and how I can write them and how I can actually see how they are spelled and how what we call these, it can definitely help you to answer your mild, spicy, and hot. Again, I hope this video has helped you understand and to recognize, basically identify how they look like, and also to represent tenths, just like I've done here with my rectangle, and I've split the rectangle into 10 equal pieces. All right, year 3, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and remember that if you have any questions about this learning, please make sure to email myself or Miss Edwards on this school email. Take care. Bye.